Hi guys. Okay, today I am here on the EMPWR Podcast, bringing on Todd Anderson, the king of sleep. He is founder and CEO of Dream Recovery, all things sleep and wellness products. They have changed my life completely, so I'm really excited to bring him on so you guys can hear all things sleep and how these products can really make an impact on your sleep. Todd Anderson, welcome to the EMPWR Podcast.
Thanks for having me. Pumped to be here.
Well, I'm pumped for you to be here. He is the king of sleep over here. But honestly, I know we're friends and you've taught me so much about sleep and the importance, but I'm really excited to dive into conversation and just learn more because there's so much to it. It's not just black and white. And there are so many good questions I have lined up for you today. But the first one I want to ask you is just to tell us a little bit about yourself and where you came from and how you got into the sleep industry.
Yeah, it's kind of a long path. If I'm being full transparency, it's probably from me being like a overweight, insecure kid. That's probably where it really stemmed from. But the reason is because that kind of got me into fitness and, you know, I wanted to look better and feel better and be stronger. And so like I became very obsessed with this performance and working out in high school and then obviously for sports and ended up going to Michigan State to play football. And within that time, I just loved you know, the human body is incredible. Mm-hmm. And I just loved kind of like maximizing my output. And it was like fun for me to learn and research. And I went to school for that. The other thing was I walked out of Michigan State. So I wasn't, pretty much just means you weren't good enough to be there, and which was true. So I just felt like I had to almost like out of desperation, learn as much as I could to try to get an edge somewhere. Right. Okay. So throughout the entire time, towards the end of my career at Michigan State, I knew I wanted to probably be a strength conditioning coach or go into something that was in that field. And so, you know, I went to the NFL for a little bit. And after that was over, I went back and worked where I trained for Pro Day. Mm-hmm. And the entire time in college and in the NFL, like I almost treated it as like an internship. I was like so interested in what we were doing and why and learning because I just, you know, that was my passion. But afterwards, I started training people. You know, I worked with a lot of athletes and I used to train, you know, celebrities and stuff. And then I got to spend time with some sleep doctors, you know, a little less than 10 years ago. And this was before anybody was talking about sleep. And the more I learned, I realized this is not a component of wellness or a component of health. This is the foundation. And nobody was really addressing it, talking about it, putting attention on it like it deserved. And so I went back and took courses and learned as much as I could. And I started speaking on this started with sports teams because naturally I was an athlete. And mm-hmm. you know, my favorite quote is communication is what's heard, not what's said. And I feel like as an athlete, people were telling us that sleep was important and all these stats, but it never sank in because it was never related to what I was trying to do. Right. And so I went back, started talking to sports teams. And then when I moved to New York, I would talk to like law firms and corporate companies about sleep. And back then I would call, you know, and we would set up a presentation and they would be like, how long do you need? Like 15 minutes. And I was like, no, like an hour. They're like an hour. You talk about sleep for an hour. But throughout that time, I realized like no one's talking about this. It will literally change your life more than any other aspect of wellness. You know, working out, fitness, strength training, cardio, nutrition, all these things are very important, but sleep will crumble all those things. Right. If you're not doing it. And so there's nothing really else like that in the wellness space, right? Like you can get away with nutrition. There's a lot of ways to do it. Workouts, there's a lot of different workouts that are effective, but sleep, there's no way to cut corners.
Okay, so I want to back up. When it came to working with the sleep doctors and learning more about sleep, had you always been good with your sleep routine or did things change for you and you like implemented that and saw it change? Yeah,
so I always prioritized it. Honestly, one thing that really motivated me was back in 2010, I was in college. This kind of landmark study came out and I was a nerd back then, right? I used to read these studies, but it came out and talked about sleep deprivation and testosterone levels. Obviously I'm a football player, so I'm like, well, testosterone is important, right? And so that stuck with me. And so I really started prioritizing it, but I always slept well. I always made it a priority. I definitely felt the difference. And then it just kind of reinforced it. And it also made me think about things like drinking, going out, you know, how that impacts the next day. So I had a good time in college for sure, but I definitely was probably more intentional and thoughtful than most people. Like we would never go out before, lifts or practices because I knew the impact it had on like protein synthesis. And so I'm like, we're already busting our butts in these workouts and it's hard. Like we don't want to, like, why make it harder on ourselves or take away from all this work we're doing? So, and also we had an amazing group around us. Like, my quarterback was Kirk Cousins, Le'Veon Bell was our running back. And when I got there, it was a bad culture. By the time we left, we were doing weight room crawls instead of bar crawls. Like we would literally walk around campus in East Lansing and go to every weight room as opposed to like bars.
That's amazing.
And so I think being around, it's kind of like life. The people you're around impact your decisions and what you focus on. So luckily I was around a really great group of guys that prioritize performance and health and wellness more than the majority of college kids.
Right. That's incredible. But
I did think I was sleeping well. And then it turns out like, going down this mouth tape journey, we started selling it and I felt so much better. I've been taping for about 4 years and it changed my life. But I was always like, why is this working? So I did a bunch of sleep studies. Turned out I had moderate sleep apnea. I had no idea. And so,
wow. Okay. What was the study done for you to figure that out?
I just did some at-home. There's a couple different devices and companies that do at-home sleep studies. And so I did a couple and then I would do them with the tape, without the tape.
Okay. Just
see the impact and it basically fixed everything.
And sleep apnea, for people that don't know, like what are the symptoms of that?
Well, that's what's tough with sleep apnea. I mean, essentially it's little bouts of when you disrupt your breathing and it can deprive your brain of oxygen throughout the night. But the issue, it's one of the most underdiagnosed things out there. The problem is when you start to have symptoms, right? Like it's been happening for a long time, right? So you really want to catch it earlier. And I do hope one day that sleep studies are like the new blood work, right? The goal of blood work is you want to get it when you're feeling great and you're young and you have these baselines and you know where you're at, because then if something changes, you don't feel as good, you can compare it. And a lot of people don't do that until they don't feel very good. Same with the sleep study. By the time you're feeling symptoms of something impacting your sleep, it's been going on for quite a while. It's not something that, you might be a little sleepy, but I'm talking, impacts on cognitive function, long-term like aging symptoms take a really long time to show themselves.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay, so with the sleep apnea, like people that snore, is that sleep apnea or is that just, can snoring be its own thing?
It's definitely a symptom of sleep apnea. So if someone snores, I would definitely go see a sleep doc and get a study done. Okay. Because it's a pretty closely linked symptom. Obviously it's some dysfunction in breathing. We're not meant to be snoring, right? And that's a pretty good start. And so, I would immediately, if I snored, I would immediately get a sleep study just because why not? And apnea is something you do not want to let go untreated. It's something that long-term, especially like neurodegenerative diseases, dementia, Alzheimer's, super impactful.
Right. And I feel like a lot of people snore these days. Like I'm thinking of one particular person that lives at home with me that I'm like, all right, we need to do a sleep study. Ian.
Yeah. And males definitely snore more than females. And
why is that?
Well, when you think of the airway, I mean, there's a lot of reasons it could be, but especially the airway, right? The bigger neck you have, the bigger chances it's going to collapse and constrict, especially if you're sleeping on your back. That's going to be the most snoring. So if you have like over a 17-inch neck, the chances you have sleep apnea go up exponentially. Wow. So that's a good tell. If you have an over 17-inch neck, you should just get a sleep study.
Just get a study going. Okay. So let's take it back to the basics when it comes to sleep fundamentals. So what are like the top sleep fundamentals that you think we should prioritize and kind of take a look at?
Yeah. I mean, the three fundamentals I always point out are consistency, your environment, and your mindset. That's kind of like the three pillars. And so first, consistency. The most important thing, the most impactful thing anyone can do for their sleep is have a consistent bedtime and wake time that doesn't vary more than 30 minutes, 7 days a week.
Wow.
That's perfect world. Now I know life's hard, but when you get outside that 30-minute range, if you have a sleep tracker or you can measure biometrics, you can see your body being impacted every 5 minutes outside those 30 minutes. It gets basically worse and worse, right? So your body responds to that regularity and that kind of sets that circadian rhythm. So you want that to be super regular. And I think most people are probably pretty close 5 days a week. And And I think they don't realize like how impactful the weekend can be to their sleep health. So consistency, and then environment. I think that setting up an environment that's conducive to sleep, not just in your bedroom, but your house, your routine, and just being mindful of it. Like just being aware of your surroundings and aware of how different things impact your sleep. And then the third one is actually, even though I said the first is the most important like thing that you can measure, the third is more impactful than anything in your mindset surrounding sleep. I think some people don't realize how much their stress throughout the day is impacting their sleep at night. They also don't realize how much anxiety they have surrounding sleep if they don't sleep well. Mm-hmm. So getting to a place that your bedroom is a place of rest and peace and calm. You're not worried about things, and there's things you can do to separate those and things you can do to help carve out your mindset to where you're just falling asleep. I think that, when we're kids, a lot of us, you don't even think about sleeping, right? Mm-hmm. Like having a bad night's sleep, you're like, what? Like, I just go to bed, and like, what do you mean? And then a lot of times, life starts to happen. We get a little older. It does become more difficult for us to get into some of these deeper sleep cycles. And all of a sudden you start worrying about not sleeping. And then another layer on top of it is you listen to things and you start realizing sleep's really important, and you worry more and more and more.
More anxiety.
So, yeah. And so it can, learn it. You want to know enough about sleep to sleep really well, but you don't want to be fixated on it to where it actually causes stress.
Okay, that makes complete sense. So back to consistency, because I have like 500 questions that just popped in my head when you kind of went through all of those fundamentals. So with the consistency part, is it better to go to sleep earlier at night and wake up earlier in the morning, or does that matter when it comes to time with like the sun rising and setting and things? So that's a great question, and I think there's some conversations being had right now in the scientific world about this. There's some really good studies coming out now that the hours before midnight that you get are actually more impactful for long-term health. Now, the argument would be that people doing that, like even if you got the same amount of sleep, the people that sleep from 8 to 5 in the morning, their lifestyle is probably a little different than someone that sleeps from 1 to 9 a.m. Right. So that's part of it. But it does seem, especially from a metabolic perspective, like a body composition perspective, that getting those hours of sleep, so shifting a little earlier to where you have a little bit more before midnight, is a better long-term health outcome than going to bed later. And I personally feel better when I go to bed earlier and wake up in the morning. Like I would rather go to bed at 8 p.m. at night and then wake up at 4. I just function better that way. And like I can think better versus staying up at night to do things. Yeah.
And I think that's more of our natural sleep cycle. When you think about the sun, when it comes up and when it sets, like that's closer to probably the way we evolved, because right now it's getting dark at 5 p.m.
so early,
and that would be a natural rhythm. Like you wouldn't be staying if we had no lights, you wouldn't be staying up for 7 hours past the time the sun went down.
Right.
So I think it as aligned as you can be with the sun. The light is super impactful to our natural rhythms, and I'd always go that direction. I also just think that with the way the world works, right? Like waking up early, getting a good start. It just, I think mentally sometimes it makes you feel like you're getting ahead of things. And I think that, I think more and more people will be staying up. Like, I don't think you'll see that late night crowd. It seems to be thinning out. Like the younger generations, like 21-year-olds right now are drinking less than any other generation at any other time.
I did not know that. Yeah, that's great though.
Yeah. It just seems like there's a pretty big movement for
prioritizing health and wellness.
Yeah. THC usage has gone up a ton.
The THC. Yeah, we've seen that. Okay, so consistency, time, schedule, that all really matters. So now when you are asleep, like I want to talk about REM sleep and deep sleep, because on my watch, since I got it last year, I've been tracking all of that. And I could see like where you would get in your head of like, oh my gosh, I'm not getting enough REM sleep or deep sleep. Can you walk us through like what these sleep cycles are and what they mean?
Yeah. So, well, first with the sleep trackers, I love sleep trackers. I've worn a Whoop for, 7 years. But the reason I like them is looking at long-term behavior change, right? So what you want to avoid is waking up, looking at a number, and then letting that impact how you feel throughout the day. Because that's really not the goal. And that creates kind of a negative relationship with sleep and just like this data. But I think the cool thing about sleep trackers is after a month, you look at a month-long report, you see how consistent your bedtime, wake time was. Maybe if you had a big life event like a new job or you moved or you had a kid, you can see how that impacts things, and you can kind of just take a step back and see if you change things in your life, how it impacts things long term. But on the day to day, you don't want to be waking up and like, you know, staring at your phone and being like, oh, I have bad recovery today. And you start convincing yourself you don't feel good.
Right. It's not going to be a good day because I didn't get enough sleep.
Yeah. So like the athletes we work with, we'll have them take everything off 2 or 3 days before competition because,
wow,
you know, part of life is like, you know, I talk about sleep a lot, but also, you know, to be a high achiever and achieve goals, you just have to get things done, right? Like if you're an athlete, especially an athlete, military, it doesn't matter what your sleep score was. You got to make it happen. Still have to do it. Right. So I think becoming reliant on that is not a good path to go down. But what's cool to do is if you adjust something to see how it affects you long term. But when it comes to the sleep cycles, the first thing to point out with that is even the best sleep trackers are maybe 70% accurate with the sleep cycles. So you don't want to get too in the weeds with something that's not that accurate. Okay, that's good to know because I try to do the whole like week to week. Like I don't do the month trend. Maybe I should start doing that. I used to, like when I first got it, I would look at it every single night and be like, oh my gosh, I didn't get enough sleep, or I'm going to thrive today because, you know, I'm at 100% body battery, had a great night of sleep. So that's good to know. But walk us through the whole like sleep cycle aspect, like REM, deep. Yeah. I need to know all the details. Yeah. So like think about sleep. There's like pretty much 2 types of sleep. You have your REM sleep, which just stands for rapid eye movement. Your eyes are literally going back and forth horizontally. And your body's pretty much paralyzed except your eye muscles and your breathing muscles. REM sleep. And then you have your non-REM sleep. So that's going to be your lighter stages of sleep, like 1, 2, 3. And then your deep sleep is the deepest non-REM cycle of sleep, right? And something to point out here is they're not more important than each other. I think some people are like, oh, I want to get more REM sleep or deep sleep. And every sleep cycle plays a different role in the body. Right. So your deep sleep, for example, that is the most physically restorative sleep. So when it comes to your muscle, your tissue, it's when like you recover from the things you do throughout the day. What also happens is you have this fluid in your brain that literally pumps. Like, so you hit your deep sleep, it pumps this cerebral spinal fluid and it flushes your brain. So your brain produces all these plaques, basically, all these proteins that can build up into plaques, and that's what causes dementia and Alzheimer's. So it literally flushes all those at night. And people that have some of those diseases, there's some really cool treatments coming out that help that function of that pumping. And there's actually some devices that are helping that. And I think somewhere in Asia that are really impactful. But what it's doing is that's clearing out your brain. So that's the deep sleep. And then the REM sleep is basically where our brain resets from a mental health, memory, mood stabilization perspective. So you kind of have your non-REM is like your physical sleep, like it helps your physical body regenerate. And then your REM sleep is like your mental reset. But they're not more important than each other. So like I always compare it to a band, right? Like, so when people think about sleep cycles, you shouldn't really be pointing out what cycle you want more of or what type of sleep you want more of. It's like a band where you have the drum and the guitar, right? Like, the drums aren't more important than the guitar, and you can't make up for lack of guitar with more drums. They have to work in unison. So it's all about having these nice proportions and healthy sleep cycles throughout the night. And so the reason I'm saying all this is because what happens is you get more deep sleep and more non-REM sleep the first half of the night. And then as you settle in towards the morning, you start to have more and more REM sleep. Interesting. Yeah. So you have to have all these different types of sleep to really optimize your health. But this is where it gets tricky. And this is why my first point was that consistency is the most important thing, is because what's wild is our body is very smart and it's very tied into our circadian rhythm and how regular we are with how we do things. So if you wake up super early, right, you're going to cut off a lot of REM sleep, right? The REM sleep happens closer to the morning. So you're going to lose more REM sleep. But what happens if you stay up super late, it doesn't just start from square one. You kind of jump right into that REM sleep and miss out on your deep sleep and your non-REM sleep. So whatever you normally do, it starts based on your circadian rhythm and your normal bedtime. It doesn't start just from the beginning and start flowing through these sleep cycles. So if you're cutting 2 hours off either end, you're missing different types of sleep. Wow. Okay. There's no way to cut that corner. And that's why consistency is the most important. It's not just quantity. It's because your body stays on those rhythms and it will affect it in different ways where you're cutting sleep from your night. Interesting. Okay. Talk to us a little bit about like dreams.
because I feel like I know some people that are like, I never remember my dreams. I personally remember a lot of my dreams. I feel like I dream a lot. Is that in a certain cycle?
So majority of dreams are in your REM sleep.
Okay.
Definitely. And that's why like, it's really impacted. If you see anyone that was like an alcoholic or they're a chronic THC user, sometimes they even have to take medication after they come off it because so when you're taking those things, you're depriving your brain of REM sleep. You'll get almost no REM sleep when you're a heavy user. When they come off it, your brain tries to react and it's like, I haven't gotten REM sleep. And it goes into these insane dreams, almost like they can be disturbing and crazy vivid because it's trying to make up for that REM sleep. So yeah, majority of dreams are in REM sleep, but remembering dreams doesn't necessarily always mean, there's a lot involved there. It could just be intentional. When you wake up, you don't think about it. Mm-hmm. So everyone's different. I wouldn't get too bought into like remembering them, but it's definitely a good thing. If it's not a bad thing if you're dreaming a lot. And sometimes you'll even feel that as a response of like you had drinks the day prior and then you sleep really hard and you'll have more dreams. And that's because your brain, is trying to make up for those different cycles that it missed out on.
So I've never talked about this on my platform, or really not even a lot of my friends know or family, but I battled night terrors for years as an adult. And so are you familiar with like night terrors? Yeah. And is that the same thing of like not getting enough REM sleep? So your body kind of puts you into
tell me
that
what your experience.
So I would literally, it would always happen like right when I would fall asleep within like the first hour. And I would just like imagine, usually it was like around like spiders or somebody coming into the room in my head. And then I would just like wake up and start screaming, but I wasn't awake, right? Like I was in that weird state. And then I would eventually wake myself up from screaming and my heart was pounding, sweating, like very scary.
Well, subjects of dreams are tough because, there are some studies with like why and what, but you can't really control where your mind's going to go when you're sleeping. But I would guess you're going through a sleep cycle. And it becomes very vivid. And then, those cycles when we're younger are usually even, our sleep is very optimized when we're younger. So you tend to really, have vivid dreams and things function at a high level. Things start to fall apart usually when we're older. Okay. And so that would make sense as it fell off.
I grew out of it.
Did you have to do anything for it?
I actually went to like, had started looking into like doing like sleep studies, like working with sleep doctors, and then they kind of eventually fell off. But like certain times in my life, they'll pop up, like when I was pregnant, and since kids, really, I haven't had any. But I noticed more stressful times. Well, it happens.
That could make sense. So what's funny is when you have more anxiety, your brain will actually create more REM sleep. Because if you think about it, that's like when we reset our mood, our mental reset, and our body is smart. And so you'll actually see an increase in REM sleep when you're under a big amount of stress, if you're able to sleep. And then vice versa, if you do crazy hard workouts, you'll see more deep sleep because it's more physically restorative. So it does adjust, which would kind of make sense. Yeah. I mean, it's a shot in the dark. I'm saying that's why, but your brain does do that.
It's crazy how smart our bodies are and how it's like all connected when it comes to, being active in the day and needing to recover at night. So I want to touch a little bit on like hormones and cycle, because I have a huge women following, female following, and I know they would want to know about this. Yeah, we do, right? Thank you.
Yeah, you do. It's hard because no matter what you do and how perfect you are with your sleep, especially in like the luteal phase, your estrogen, progesterone plummet, and those are really impactful for sleep, especially for temperature regulation. And so, in order to fall asleep especially, you have to drop your core temperature about 1 degree, and so when that's happening, your body just has a really tough time regulating temperature. So it becomes very difficult. And it's not, I think a good thing, speaking on this subject, is just give yourself some grace. Understand like the female body is pretty amazing, right? But there's a toll for everything, right? And that's kind of the trade-off is it's constantly adjusting and the hormone levels are changing and there's going to be, impacts from that. And so the thing I always recommend is majority of the issues are surrounding temperature regulation, or at least things that you can control. And so doing things, just being super aware about your bedding and your pillow and how cold your room is, maybe use an 8 sleep or something like that, but just being extra attentive to your temperature and how you regulate that is probably going to be the best route. But I think when you know it's normal that those things impact your sleep, I think it's a little bit easier to grasp and be okay with, instead of beating yourself up and thinking something's wrong.
Right. Giving yourself grace, I think, is key. Yeah. So I love that you said that. And kind of like reflecting on my sleep throughout the month, I notice like there'll be waves that I'm like hot at night or cold and I need more covers. Like that all goes into hormones, right? Like
definitely.
What are your suggestions or tips on what like an appropriate bedding situation looks like and temperature for like in the room?
Yeah. I mean, for the room, 63 to 68 seems to be the sweet spot. I would say your body's ability to cool off is more important than being warm. Like you don't want to be cold, but if your body wants to cool off, you want to have it cool enough where maybe you take some covers off and you're able to do that. I use an 8 Sleep. I mean, I think it's amazing.
Okay. Talk to us. What is that?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a mattress cover that basically puts a thin layer of water through the entire cover. And so you can have, each side can have a different temperature, up to 10 degrees difference from room temperature. But what's interesting, like 10 degrees difference, like cooler, but it's touching your skin is like 30 degrees difference.
It feels, yeah.
And it can actually measure your body temperature and adjust throughout the night automatically. It measures your heart rate, HRV, all these different things. But it's a great tool. My wife, Katie, loves it, for those different cycle times. And you can adjust it. And it's just really, really dialed in as far as temperature regulation goes. That's
huge, especially for, being married or having a partner that you're sleeping in the same bed with, because male and female too, to our point earlier, like different hormones, you're going to feel different, right? Temperature wise.
For sure. Yeah. And most women need a little bit more sleep than men, 20-ish minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
20 minutes, you said?
20 minutes about, there's a few different studies, but 20 minutes is pretty much the norm. You have to deal with us. So that kind of makes sense why you need a little more rest.
Yeah. A little bit more recovery there.
Yeah. But, yeah, the other thing is I don't think people realize a lot. Like when you are sleeping with a partner, like you have to realize the impacts of that too, right? So even like a memory foam mattress, you want to wake up the least amount of times possible in the night, right? Because every time you wake up, there's a chance. You could stub your toe on the way to the bathroom. You could start thinking about something. There's a chance you might not be able to fall back asleep. So if you're already waking up a couple of times, well, now you have a partner that's waking up a couple of times. You're doubling the chances that you're having issues throughout the night. And so you want to really limit that as much as possible. So like something like a memory foam mattress that doesn't transfer force when the other person moves or gets up, like that's something to really think about. Even like a vibrating alarm, like the 8 Sleep has a vibrating alarm on each side, or even like a, Whoop.
Yeah, we use our garments for the vibrating alarm feature.
So like if your partner has a different schedule than you and you can sleep an extra hour, and just being mindful of those things makes a huge difference, as opposed to having a loud alarm and now the other person's sleep is disrupted. Right. And I don't think people really think about that especially when they first start sleeping with somebody else.
No, that's such a great point. Okay. Let's spice things up a little bit and talk about the partner aspect when it comes to sleep and all the things involved in the bedroom.
Yep.
Okay. So first I want to get your thoughts on having sex before bedtime.
It's pretty much net positive.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of positive, from a hormone perspective. Obviously, for guys, it's a stressor. Like physiologically. So anytime there's relief from a stress, you kind of have the other reaction, and people tend to fall asleep really quickly. But the physical interaction from a hormone perspective, in touch, and like as long as you like your partner, there's a lot of good feelings surrounding safety, and it's all net positive. Depending on, I guess, unless some crazy stuff's going on, but for the most part, I would say
it's a good, healthy relationship.
Definitely. Yes. And a little more impactful for guys, like on the positive side for sleep, which I don't think
better sleep, deeper sleep. Okay.
Usually fall asleep faster. I don't think it's any surprise based on people's reactions.
Yeah, I'm sure. What about like cuddling? Because I know a lot of people cuddle.
Yeah, same thing. Like some of those same hormones, like the love hormone, is produced when you're like physical touch, and that's why, so sleep divorce is super popular right now.
Sleep divorce. Yeah. What is this? So
it's basically just when couple sleeps in different rooms, you have your own bed, and because optimizing your sleep environment. Somebody snores or somebody's disruptive, whatever. But I'm old school. Like I'm, there's a lot of people in the sleep space that are recommending this. And it's like, your sleep is your sacred thing and it needs to be a priority, which I 100% agree with. But I just think there's so many tools and things like we're talking about. I mean, I just think that part of our society is being together, and sleeping is a really meaningful thing. Also, physical touch is really healthy for us. And I would just go down a lot of paths of things like, sleep studies and mattresses and taping and things to limit snoring, like before I would separate bedrooms.
I mean, that seems like so aggressive.
It's very trendy. Oh, it's like a whole
trendy.
thing.
Oh my gosh. Wait, it makes me sad too, though, because I feel like that's so important, like to unite at night. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And I mean, I cherish that time,
right?
That time before bed, and you kind of wind down. But some people that's just not how they're wired, and they've had amazing experiences, and they've been so much happier and healthier because their sleep was really messed up when they had someone else there. So I guess I don't want to knock it, but I guess me personally, it's like
right,
a little more old school.
Right. Everyone's different. If it works for you, then that's great.
Yeah. And I get it too, though. Like it is hard to sleeping is a challenge for a lot of people by themselves. Right. So now you throw in another person's issues in the mix, and it can be hard depending what it is, but
I get that.
I would explore things.
Do you snore? Or does Katie snore? Or do you guys have any weird?
No, but we're definitely both mouth breathers.
Okay.
And so, we look pretty wild at night with our masks and our mouth tape on.
The full getup, which I do too now. So, you owning Dream Recovery. I mean, I just love all the wellness products you guys have for sleep when it comes to the mouth tape, the eye masks, the pillows. So talk to us a little bit on what you think as far as products we should be taking into the bed with us.
It's hard. I definitely the most impactful between the mask and the mouth tape. I think that's always a debate. I think masks get kind of a weird reputation because I think they've been seen as like a luxury beauty, unnecessary thing. Mm-hmm. But once you get used to it, the psychological trigger of putting a mask on, I mean, it's crazy the difference people have once they're like, oh, this is the thing that puts me to sleep. And the other thing is, what I love about it, it's a really cheap, easy way to duplicate or replicate a blackout environment anywhere you go, right? Traveling, no matter what the lights are, it's really hard to black out a room, fully black out a room, right. No seams, nothing. Or the TV light. I noticed that in hotel rooms, I'm I have to just put things around it. Yeah. And so that's really hard. Sleep mask solves that problem really easily. Right. So I've had to pick between the two, but the tape for me and my wife, just because the way we breathe and, the way it just calms our breath down and allows us to breathe through our nose. I mean, that's a non-negotiable. Right. And I think if you're unsure if you're a mouth breather or nasal breather, I mean, nasal breathing is incredible. The way it calms our nervous system down, oral hygiene. So yeah, I want to talk about that really quick. Because first off, I'm sure people are like, what is mouth tape? So we'll get into that. But with the nasal breathing versus mouth breathing, because I was a mouth breather before mouth taping, and we'll get into that. But talk to us about the differences and what to look for when you're trying to figure out if you do one or the other. It's kind of tough. It is hard to tell because you're sleeping, obviously. And so a lot of times the only way someone realizes it is after they tape and change their perspective. But you can tell too, in the morning, if you wake up and you have a really dry mouth, that's usually a good tell. Or if you have someone sleeping with you, have them look if they ever see you, sleeping in the middle of the night. And so, I mean, through the research to the last 10 or so years, the more and more we find, the more we're realizing nasal breathing is super impactful to well-being. And there's a lot of reasons for it. I mean, top to bottom, it's one, the only way to truly calm your nervous system down is to breathe through your nose. And it's a direct connection. If you could be having the most stress, crazy thing going on around you, there could be a fire in the corner. And now, not that you could, but if you can control your breathing and slow your exhales down, breathe through your nose, your nervous system will actually calm down. It's not like a debate. It's not subjective. It's factual. That's just how our body works. Right. Those nerves are intertwined. They're directly impacted. So if you're able to do that, I think that's the real magic. If you talk to any most psychologists, therapists, anyone in the mental health space, the first thing they'll always recommend is breath work. And there's some debate about mouth tape, but what mouth tape is doing, it's really backing people into breath work without having to be intentional. Because I know a lot of people, myself included, you hear breath work. One, there's a million kinds out there, and it takes a lot of brain power and intention, and
time and practice.
It's a little overwhelming. Yeah, you're like, oh, I know it works, but
it's like meditation.
Exactly. But the tape, what it's doing is it's backing you in by, okay, you can't breathe out of your mouth, so you have to calm your breath down. You have to slow your exhales down, breathe through your nose, and people are able to actually feel the benefits of this breath work without having to think about it. And I think that's actually the magic. And on top of that, your nose produces nitric oxide. You breathe in your lungs, expands your blood vessels. Your blood pressure lowers, allows you to relax. Your oral hygiene, like your microbiome, the bacteria in your mouth. I mean, I think this will be a huge shift in the next 5 years in the health space, because everyone's talking about the gut microbiome and the bacteria. Well, that starts in the mouth. Everything we ingest, and that process starts in the mouth. And so when your mouth is open throughout the night, it becomes very acidic, like a 4 on the pH scale, super acidic. Wow. The bacteria start to grow at abnormal rates. Your teeth start to deteriorate at a faster rate. And so I think in the dental space, mouth taping is becoming super popular because of that reason.
Yeah, I really have seen it blow up. I have like some dental friends that are huge supporters of it.
And then the jawline thing is always very appealing.
Okay, so talk to us about that. So it makes you have a better jawline?
Well, your bone structure, your body will adapt to whatever position it's in, right, over time. And so it takes a while. You have to be super consistent. But if you have a closed mouth throughout the night, that gives a more defined shape of your jaw. And you really see this in kids, because kids are growing at such a fast rate. And that's where they did the majority of the studies were on kids, because it happens quickly. But yeah, like, your jaw will take shape of what it's in. Your body is super efficient and wants to spend the least amount of energy. So if it's in a position, it's going to form to that position. And that's why your jaw can be more defined by having your mouth closed at night.
Wow. Interesting. And so I wasn't obviously in the health industry prior to this, working in primary care and other specialties, but there was a lot of talk around like the way that your tongue should rest on your palate to help open up those airways. So to your point, I mean, it helps in so many different areas, but especially with the snores too, like we talked about earlier, like that's going to allow them to have more room. Yeah.
It's hard because some of the cause, there could be a lot of reasons for the airway closing. Even like philosophy of orthodontics has changed quite a bit. It used to be more aesthetically driven. They'd pull teeth and they would just make sure everything looked good. And that was like the primary focus. Well, now we're realizing breathing in your airway and how efficient you're able to breathe is super important. So that shifted a lot, but we kind of grew up in an era that was a little more aesthetically driven. So I think that's part of it too, is I don't think there was a focus on the airway and how, these big open airways are kind of the direction we need to move to. And so that's changing.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So talk to us about mouth tape, because I know on my Instagram, I obviously am a huge supporter in mouth tape. I love it. But people are like, what's that thing on your mouth? So Todd, what is mouth tape?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been taping for 4 years, and it literally is just meant to close your mouth throughout the night and force you to breathe through your nose. And it's not magic. It might feel like magic to people, but it's just reliant on the foundation of the science behind nasal breathing and making that happen. But when I started promoting it, I realized like there wasn't any brands. They were all made overseas. There was not any focus on like what's in the adhesive. When you think about skincare and the ingredients, I mean, massive focus now on all these forever chemicals and what goes into your skincare routine. Well, then all of a sudden people were just using random tape that who knows what's in the adhesive, where did it come from? And so I was like, there's got to be like we can do this better. And so we're made in the US. We have all different kinds. It's the highest medical grade water-based adhesive, and we have different shapes because it's a little scary, like you're closing your mouth and it's weird and people are like, what is this? So, we have the large ones, we have the small ones that you like.
Yeah, the little strips.
I mean, those are our best product. It's small, but it's more sticky than your normal tape. So it actually, it'll stay, but every other tape, it stretches side to side, and that stretches up and down. And so you're able to open your mouth, and it's just like more of a reminder and a gentle closing than like taping your mouth shut.
Well, because I feel like also too, it can be intimidating to be like, here, put a giant piece of mouth tape over your mouth. Like,
if there's any any creeping thoughts of being claustrophobic, you're going to probably have a tough time.
But I will say, because I used to be claustrophobic, I feel like somebody that's wanting to start mouth tape, you would say what? Maybe start with the strips, work your way up.
Yeah, the
to
strips are a great first option. Now, some people do need a little more security depending, but the other thing is just sit on the couch, watch TV, put it on, and you prove to yourself like you're fine. You can even go for a walk, and you'll be totally fine, and you'll kind of teach yourself that I'm good, and start from there. But the strips are a great first option. But then I use the skincare infused, because we get all the feedback about.
I love that.
Especially the females will be like, I had this skincare routine, but the tape doesn't stick.
Or I like to wear chapstick or lip balm at night.
Exactly. So we're like, well, let's try to infuse that into the tape. So it's got like aloe, vitamin D, vitamin E, biotin, collagen. It's like an anti-aging formula a dermatologist made that's infused and meant to moisturize your lips, so you don't have to worry about like picking or choosing between the two. But I mean, it's one of those things, like just try it. And you know, one thing's for sure, like you want to be breathing through your nose when you sleep. And that's the only thing we're trying to do. So there's different versions to just try to achieve that. Right.
Yeah. I personally like the skincare.
Yeah. I mean,
the skin infused one.
I mix it up a little bit though.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. So for somebody that is like hearing all of this and feeling inspired to, better their sleep health, what would you say are like your non-negotiables, like top 3?
I would say the first thing is your schedule. I think carve out the 8 hours, put that in your calendar. So
8, is that like the magic number?
The minimum is 7.
Okay.
Like that's like the absolute minimum. That's pretty agreed upon. But they did a few pretty cool studies last year, and the average person, optimal amount was like a little over 8.5 hours. And so it was a little longer than they anticipated. And those were 30-year-olds. So, when people are like, I need 9 hours, 8.5 hours, and they think something's wrong, that's okay. You could be that person. And there's a much higher chance that's actually like right around the norm. Okay. And when people say they only need 6 hours, like that's just not true. I know, because I hear people be like, "Oh, I'm fine with just 5 to 6 hours a night." Yeah, it's like less than 1% of the population can function optimally off of 6 hours of sleep. Wow. Yeah. Interesting. So it's also just not a gamble I would want to take. Like the negatives of being underslept long term are pretty bad. So I also want to flip it though on the opposite end, getting too much sleep. Yeah, I mean, so the 10-hour mark or 10.5 hour, like if you're chronically needing over that, that's probably something to take a look at, and that's probably a symptom of something going on health wise. And because there is it's like a curve, right? Like some people need a little less, some people need more than that 8-hour mark, but there's a point of diminishing return where something it's not good. You should be needing more than probably like 10 hours. I feel like the 7.5, 8 hour mark is like my sweet spot. I always feel best around there. If you go on vacation, do you and you can sleep as long as you want, do you sleep in or no? Oh no, I'm still up at like 7. I feel like I wake up at 7, but my body still might be tired, but my brain is like, let's go, we have things to do. Yeah. So I don't, do you know what I mean? Like that difference of feeling your body needing more, but then your brain is like wired. Yeah. So like you want to go to bed bad, but you're like, you're like, I can't. I know. I feel like it's just being a mom too. Like I'm sure the moms can relate listening to this. Sure. It's like, you might want more sleep and feel like you need it, but you're just like wired to get up with your kids. How was your sleep experience after having kids? Honestly, better. I used to wake up in the middle of the night and go pee all the time and interrupted sleep. And then once I had kids, it got better, which I feel like for some people it's the opposite, but like, yeah, I wouldn't expect that. I did a lot of pelvic floor therapy too. So I think that helped with my bladder, but I think it's just the days are so long. My body just shuts down at night and stays shut, which is nice. Well, I mean, that's one thing that's just net positive for sleep. And I think it's underestimated is exercise. Like there is science to tiring yourself out. And exercise is net positive for sleep. Right. All of it. Any time of day. They used to think earlier in the day you didn't want to be too close to bedtime. There's new stuff that came out. It's like literally 2 hours before bed. It's still going to have a positive impact on your sleep. Better than not doing it. And so it's cool. Like the different types of exercise you do, the different types of sleep cycles, it'll kind of adjust to what you do. But exercise is an amazing sleep tool. It's key. I think that honestly made it big because I'm exercising so much more than I was prior to kids. So I think that's probably a huge reason too. Yeah. And I don't think people think about that. They're like, oh, I know I should exercise, but they don't realize like exercise is a legit sleep tool.
Right. It is a huge tool. Okay. So 8 hours of sleep around there. What are your other two?
Yeah. So I would say I think the mentality around the planning, right? So most people plan their day and then sleep gets the leftover. Well, let's carve out the sleep and then the day gets the leftover, because it's kind of like saving money. It's like if you save it first and then spend it, you'll still save.
Right.
And so the same with sleep. I think if you're able to, and I understand people like, I'm not saying this is easy, but if you're able to, if you can carve that out and then make everything else fit, I think that's really the best approach. And I think shifting what's most important, because a lot of times what I found is people are actually able to get everything they want to get done. It's just a reprioritization. And when there's leftover time, it's easy to chip away at their sleep and add things early or late in the day. And I think you just want to turn that upside down.
Right.
So,
well, then you're not going to function as well too and perform as well in those other areas if you're not prioritizing the sleep. So.
And that's my whole thing with life is like, I want to have the best years and the best hours of life. I don't want to have the most.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that.
Right. Like who cares if you're awake 20 hours, you're awake more hours, but they suck. Like who cares? But if you're, let's say you sleep 8 hours and you're only awake 16, but you feel amazing and you're living your best life, able to connect with people, have energy, like that's much better. I'll take that route every single time.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think having the best, not the most, is a way to look at it.
I love that. Okay. What's your third?
My third is just
tools, like sleep tools. That's what I would think you would say.
Honestly, my third is just know you'll be okay, because I think that people get in the way of their sleep. And I think that what happens is they know it's important. They start freaking out in the middle of the night and they can't go back to sleep because they know they have something important to do or they need energy. But you've pulled all-nighters. You've had crazy sleep schedules. You might have had a kid. You've done amazing things. You've done things far harder than not sleeping. You're going to be fine. You're going to get through the day. You might be a little sleepy, and then you're going to go to sleep the next night. And I think people just work that up so much in their head that they create so many problems. But
especially in the postpartum phase, because I remember you're not getting the sleep that you should, but your body is equipped to be able to go through that as a female.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
It's
another
made
reason
for
why
that.
the human body is just incredible, but it's a season, right? Yeah. And it's going to be okay. So I love that.
Yeah. And don't beat yourself up. Michael Jordan used to go have 20 beers and stay up all night and he'd go score 60 points the next day. Like the body can do amazing things, but you can also talk yourself in to performing and feeling pretty crappy. So, if you know you're going to be okay and just push through and go through it, and you can convince yourself you'll be fine, and you will be fine. Like I promise you'll be fine. You're not going to fall over in the middle of the day from not sleeping 3 extra hours.
Agreed. Okay. So 8 hours of sleep, prioritize sleep, and guess what? It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
I love that.
Give yourself chill out a little bit, give yourself some grace.
That's good. Okay. So are you ready for a little game?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So this is called Dream It or Leave It.
Okay.
So if you love it and recommend it, you'll choose Dream It. And then if you're like, it's too overhyped, you'll choose Leave It.
Do you want me to say anything about it? Or just say Dream It or Leave It.
You can say like a 5-second blurb or something, like a little note to it if you want.
Okay.
All right. Ready?
Yep.
Weighted blankets.
Dream It. Some good stuff. We're going to come out with them. It's good studies.
Ooh, okay. Yeah. Can't wait. Drinking magnesium instead of melatonin before sleep.
Dream It.
Okay.
Love magnesium. Magnesium 3 and 8 is my favorite.
3 and 8. Yeah, that's me too. It's the best. All right. No blue light before bed.
I'd say leave it because you can don't overthink it. It's not demonized, but limit it.
Okay. Like cut it out like a few minutes prior to bed. At least.
just taper it off, but don't freak out about it.
Okay. Or use your
glasses,
your blue light blocking glasses, which I highly recommend. Dream has. They're great. I use them.
Yes.
All right. Sleeping with blackout curtains.
Dream It.
Okay. Noise
hard,
machine.
Hard.
Do what?
Hard though.
Hard.
Sleep mask is much easier.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Sleep mask. Yeah. They'll cut out everything. Okay. Noise machines.
Dream It if you like it.
Okay. Sleeping naked.
Dream It. Why not?
2 pillows versus 1.
I would say leave it. I think you want a pillow that is aligned with your neck position for whatever position you sleep in.
Okay.
Right. So it the height is individualized.
Too low can be too low.
Yeah.
Too high can right. All right. Sleeping with pets in your bed.
I'd have to say Dream It. There's no way my dog's not sleeping in my bed. I was about to say, knowing
the relationship you guys have with your dog, you're like,
she's the queen in the bed.
Right. It's her world. You guys are just living in it. Yeah. All right. Having a bedtime snack.
Leave it.
Okay.
2 hour gap usually is
2 hours. Okay. Good to know. I feel that way too. Syncing sleep with your cycle.
Like, I guess in what?
Like making sure you have the right blankets, temperature, all these things to kind of like align better sleep.
I would say leave it, because I don't think you want to change. You want to keep it as consistent as possible.
Okay.
So always focus on it, but don't change it based on.
Perfect. That's a good one. And then naps during the day.
I would say dream it if you're a good napper, but if you're not, leave it.
I'm not a good napper.
If it's going to impact your nighttime sleep, leave it.
Okay.
Not
good
worth
to
it.
know. Right.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, that was fun.
Did I win the game?
Yeah, I think you did. A lot of dreamers. Very positive.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right.
What's your favorite sleep tool?
Ooh, honestly, the mouth tape now. But I am such a big, like I have to have a noise machine. Like brown noise is my favorite. But anywhere we go, whether we're traveling on vacation, I use my phone for
When
that.
did you start doing that?
Like since college.
And why did you start?
Because I had a very loud roommate who snored.
Yeah, that's when it's great. It's like noise machines are awesome. If you don't use a noise machine and it's not loud, and it's not going to add to the quality of your sleep if there's nothing going on. But if you're drowning out noises, it's super useful. And it's also super useful once you're used to it, right? So now like you're associating that with sleep. And so that's something
that's my thing helpful. Is like, I wish I could sleep without it. I feel like I'm just kind of addicted to it now. It's not the worst thing. Right. There could be worse. This is not like heavy metal or something. So
who was I talking to the other day? Someone was talking to, it was the sleep divorce situation. And the partner had to listen to sports podcasts to go to sleep. No, sports radio.
That's crazy.
To go to sleep all night. It was on all night. That's the only way I could fall asleep. And I was like, that's probably a valid reason to have a sleep divorce.
I was about to say, in that situation, I would probably find a different bedroom as well. Yeah, I love it.
You might find a different partner, I feel like.
Right. If we got to that point. All right. So a question that I like to ask all my guests on this podcast is about empowerment. Obviously, the theme of the podcast, Empower Podcast. So what does empowerment mean to you?
That's a good question. I would say empowerment... I think feeling empowered is having the courage to go after whatever you want to go after, regardless of the amount of fear that you have. Right. So I think a lot of things are scary. And I think fear is often much more physically, or it seems much scarier than it is. But once you kind of hug the cactus or just take a step, it's much less scary than it is. So I think when you're empowered, you're able to do that regardless of how you feel.
I love that. That speaks to me too. I feel like the last couple of years, my life has completely changed, but like removing that fear aspect, like truly does make you feel empowered. So,
but see, you shouldn't have been scared, right?
Right. Well, looking back at it, you're like, okay.
But in the moment, it is though.
Yeah. Life is scary. So it's like removing that fear obstacle can make a big difference.
Fear is a mile wide and an inch deep. That's an Alex Ramosi quote, but I love that one.
I love that. I feel like I could keep going because there's so many good questions, but I've learned so much. Obviously, you've taught me a lot outside of this podcast. On your Instagram, it's obviously super insightful too. So thank you for coming on. But where can people find you?
I mean, on Instagram the most, just Todd Anderson 42, and then dreamrecovery.io.
Okay.
But I'm pumped you started this because I feel like you're going to share some awesome messages and help a lot of people.
Thank you. Well, I really bringing guests on like you make a big difference. So thank you.